Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take, well, often some pretty challenging, sometimes really personal source material and try to pull out the actionable knowledge, maybe some surprising insights.
Mhm.
And today, we're tackling something it's incredibly isolating for the person experiencing it, but statistically, it's, almost universal, severe depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and our source material for this deep dive, it's mainly excerpts from Matt Haig's book, Reasons to Stay Alive. It's just incredibly honest.
It really is.
And it's like much more than just his story, isn't it? It's part memoir, part, I don't know, philosophy almost, part practical advice. It gives you this rare, unfiltered look into an illness that, well, let's face it, is so often misunderstood or just simplified.
Totally. So our mission here, it feels ambitious, but I think it's important. We need to get past those cliches, that depression is just feeling a bit down or sad. We really want to try and grasp the sheer physical side of it, the existential weight of the despair he describes, and then pull out the insights that can help fight that stigma, that awful stigma, and ultimately, hopefully, find some tools, some actual wisdom that's been tested, that can help with long-term resilience, long-term recovery, whether that's for you listening or maybe if you're supporting someone going through it.
And I think we have to start with the big idea, right? The core premise that really holds the whole book together.
Okay.
When you're in the depths of severe depression, a key part of it, a really devastating symptom, is that you genuinely cannot see any possibility of hope. None. No future, no way out. It's like the tunnel's blocked at both ends.
It sounds terrifying.
It is, but, and this is the crucial but, the very fact this book exists, the fact that Matt Haig survived, that he wrote it, that he can look back and talk about it with such clarity, well, that's proof that depression lies.
Okay, so the feeling is real, the pain is absolutely real?
Intensely real. Agony, fear, all real. But the message the depression sends, that is permanent, that there's no hope, that part is fundamentally wrong.
That distinction feels really, really important. Pain is real, prognosis is false.
Exactly. And that sets the stage, doesn't it, for his first big collapse? He was only 24.
Yeah, 24. And in Ibiza, of all places, which sounds so counterintuitive, right? Sunshine, beauty.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But it wasn't some, slow drift into sadness. The way he describes it, it was catastrophic. A sudden devastating fall into this suffocating, totally alien reality. So the way the illness actually started for him, the onset, it's terrifying just reading about it, mainly because it was so physical. It wasn't, a sad thought popping into his head first.
It started biologically, didn't it? He talks about this sense, it's just this feeling that something was going wrong, like an alarm bell inside. And then immediately, this really intense physical thing happening at the back of his skull and the cerebellum. He said it was like a pulsing or a flickering.
Yeah, as though a butterfly was trapped inside his skull. That's the image he uses. And this intense tingling.
Wow. And that internal noise, chaos, it was amplified by his heart rate just shooting up.
Instantly. Sinking him, as he puts it, fast into this world where death suddenly felt like the only phenomenally good idea.
Which immediately shows you the problem with the language we use, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We say depression, and it sounds, I don't know, low, flat, static, maybe, like just being a bit sad.
Yeah, quiet.
But his reality, it was depression mixed with just overwhelming terror. Panic. It was absolutely not something flat or still. It was infinite torment, constant fear, this chaotic internal noise.
He nails that language problem with that quote, doesn't he? The one about...
Oh, yeah. What idiot called it depression and not... There are bats living in my chest and they take up a lot of rooms. Let's see a shadow.
Bats in the chest. That imagery just perfectly captures that visceral, uncontrollable chaos. It's not a mood, is it? It's like an invasion.
Exactly. An invasion. And when it was at its absolute worst, this feeling, this torment, it made him wish for anything else. Like he desperately wanted physical pain instead.
Like a broken leg, he says.
Yeah, something tangible, something you can point to. Because the mind is boundless, isn't it? And so its torments feel infinite too. And inescapable.
And that intensity, it leads to this really profound kind of existential horror. He makes this distinction that's really important, I think. It wasn't just that he wanted to be dead.
No. It was that he wished he had never been alive to begin with.
That's chilling. To wish you'd been, what was it, one of the 300 million sperm that hadn't made it.
Right, and that's not about self-hatred necessarily. It's just this acknowledgement that the sheer pain and fear of being, of existing, had become so overwhelming that non-existence seemed like the only good option.
Yeah.
It's like a total rejection of being human when your mind breaks down that badly.
And what makes it all so much worse, so isolating, is that it's invisible, right?
Completely. He has that line, you are walking around with your head on fire and no one can see the flames.
Wow.
And that invisibility, that's what lets the stigma fester. The idea that you're just being weak or dramatic or lazy, it survives because people can't see the fire.
Which is just so cruel because, like he says, depression is fundamentally a disease of thoughts.
Exactly. Your own thoughts are the source of the torture.
Yeah.
And when the world outside can't see it and dismisses it, well, that's incredibly painful, doubly so.
And you see that playing out, like literally in that story about the cliff edge in Ibiza.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful moment. He walks out of the villa, goes up to the cliff, looks out. And the view is objectively stunning. Sparkling Mediterranean Sea, cliffs, the picture postcard.
The most beautiful view in the world, he calls it.
And yet,
Yeah.
that beauty, it did nothing. It couldn't stop this overwhelming urge to just end the pain. That was the goal right then. Not happiness, just the absence of pain.
It's such a tragic image, the beautiful world right there, but the internal reality is just hell.
Mm-hmm. And he sees this little lizard nearby, just surviving, doing his lizard thing. And he wishes he could be like that, just have that simple drive to live.
And he's sort of caught, isn't he? Needing courage to die, but also needing courage to live. Both feel impossible.
Exactly. Equally huge tasks. And the thing that actually stopped him, held him back from jumping, it was love.
But in a really painful way.
Yeah, it wasn't comforting love in that moment. He realized that the love from his family, his girlfriend Andrea, it was trapping him. It was making it harder to escape the pain.
He wished he was totally alone.
Yeah, because their love felt like a barrier to the only relief he could imagine. He genuinely thought, if they could spend just 10 minutes inside his head, they'd understand. They'd offer him euthanasia.
It just shows the absolute terrifying isolation inside that state. The very things that should save you feel like a burden.
Mm-hmm. So he turns back, throws up from the stress. He survives that moment. But yeah, the journey out of that invisible fire, it had really only just begun.
So after that, that terrifying moment on the cliff, the next step was, well, medical help. A clinic in Spain.
Right. And the doctor sees him, sees the shaking hands, the racing heart, puts it down to adrenaline overload, which, technically true, but...
Yeah, symptom not cause. And prescribes high-dose diazepam, Valium.
And what's fascinating, or maybe deeply worrying, is how his reaction to the cure was almost as fearful as his reaction to the illness itself.
He was scared of everything at that point, wasn't he? Anything that might change his mental state. Medication, alcohol, even just like lack of sleep or a massage.
Totally. So taking the diazepam, this thing meant to calm him. It triggered intense panic almost immediately.
It's like a reverse placebo effect or a nocebo effect.
Exactly. He just didn't believe deep down that getting better was even on the table. So the second the drug started doing anything, even be calming him slightly, his brain interpreted it as danger, as losing control, and ramped up the panic.
Wow. Sliding him further away from reality. He mentions having similar reactions later on, too, even with things like St. John's wort or just standard ibuprofen.
Yeah, his mind was balanced on such a knife edge of fear that any change felt like a threat.
Which really brings us back hard to that mind-body connection we were just talking about.
Absolutely. The phrase mental illness feels so inadequate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because his experience, and so many people's experience, is incredibly physical.
Totally. He lists those NHS symptoms for anxiety's physical effects. Dizziness, pins and needles.
Palpitations, irregular heartbeat, muscle aches, dry mouth, sweating, shortness of breath, nausea, headaches, insomnia.
It's everything. The illness is felt everywhere in the body.
The body is basically the brain's alarm system, just screaming its head off.
So if the body is screaming that loud,
Yeah.
why is medicine still kind of struggling to give clear answers? That's where the source goes next, right? Into the science or the lack of certainty in the science.
Yeah, the unknown unknowns. He points out that neuroscience, compared to other sciences, is still pretty young, a baby science. We know more about distant stars, he says, than the actual processes inside our own brains.
Which must be deeply unsettling when you're desperately looking for medical answers.
Completely. And it leads him to question that dominant theory, the chemical imbalance idea, specifically the serotonin hypothesis.
Right, the idea that depression is just low serotonin, which is why SSRIs like Prozac became so common.
But the source argues that theory was always a bit shaky, and now there's more and more evidence contradicting it.
And this is the really interesting bit, I thought. He points to antidepressants like chanapupatine.
Yeah, which actually do the opposite of SSRIs. They increase serotonin reuptake, meaning there's less serotonin available in the synapse.
So hang on. If you have one drug class that supposedly works by boosting serotonin and another drug that seems to work by reducing it.
Exactly. Then the simple low serotonin depression idea just can't be the full story. It proves we're not all singing from the same hymn sheet, scientifically speaking.
So where else could the problem lie?
Well, the book introduces Professor Robert Malenka's work. He focuses on a different part of the brain, the nucleus accumbens, tiny structure deep inside.
And that's linked to pleasure, reward.
Pleasure, reward, motivation, addiction, all that core stuff. Malenka's idea is maybe that's where the malfunction is in depression. Not just serotonin regulation, but the brain's fundamental reward system breaking down.
Which would explain anhedonia, wouldn't it? That inability to feel pleasure, which is such a key, awful symptom of severe depression.
Precisely. If your capacity for pleasure just switches off, your motivation to even exist just collapses. It reframes it away from just mood towards something much more fundamental about reward.
That makes a lot of sense.
And thinking about these different possibilities allows the author to develop his own theory, which he calls the modern collision.
Yeah, I found this really compelling. The idea that maybe our brains, our Stone Age minds basically just haven't evolved fast enough.
To cope with this. Modern life.
Yeah.
The sheer speed, the volume of information, the constant pressure, emails pinging, breaking news alerts, pop-up ads, even just the stress of a busy supermarket, a strip-lit Tesco Metro, as he puts it.
So the anxiety isn't necessarily irrational. It might be a kind of logical response to a crazy environment.
That's the provocative idea. Maybe our fight-or-flight system is just permanently switched on because the world is constantly demanding instant reactions and processing overwhelming input.
That's quite a thought.
And so for him, the takeaway wasn't necessarily finding the magic pill because pills terrified him and didn't seem to work initially anyway. It was about becoming his own best laboratory.
Trying things out himself.
Yeah. Finding what actually helped him, regardless of the fuzzy science. Things like getting enough sleep, regular exercise, talking intensely about it, finding his own non-drug relief. #3, the stigma trap in the male paradox.
Okay, so shifting from the sort of personal internal experience in the science to how this all plays out in society, the cost is just devastating. The book hits hard with some statistics here.
Yeah, really hard. Necessary, though. Suicide. It's now a leading cause of death in places like the UK and the US. Globally, it's responsible for more than 1 in every 100 deaths.
1 in 100. That's huge.
And to really hammer home the scale of it, the source compares it to other major diseases. Suicide kills more people than stomach cancer,
Right.
cirrhosis of the liver, colon cancer, breast cancer, and Alzheimer's.
Wow. Combined.
That just fundamentally reframes this, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It's not just individual struggle. It's one of the biggest public health crises we face. And it's largely hidden.
Hidden in plain sight. And that leads straight into this really startling thing the book calls the male paradox.
The numbers are stark. Roughly twice as many women experience serious depression. That's well documented.
Okay.
Yet, worldwide, men are consistently 3 to 6 times more likely to die by suicide.
3 to 6 times. In the UK, he says the ratio is 3.5 men for every 1 woman.
Yeah. So if depression is the main driver, why is it so much more fatal for men?
The book points to cultural pressure, right? But it's more than just saying boys don't cry.
It's deeper than that, yeah. It's about how masculinity has traditionally been constructed. Men are conditioned to see mental illness, any sign of emotional struggle, as weakness, a failure of strength, of fortitude.
Even if consciously we think that's outdated, it still has power.
Absolutely. And it creates this terrible internal conflict because masculinity often involves being the fixer, right? The one who solves problems, manages things, stays in control.
So when the problem is inside your own head, a broken mind that you can't fix with just willpower.
It feels like a fundamental failure, a failure of the very thing society expects of you. Self-control. You feel ashamed.
Which leads to silence, isolation.
Exactly. They retreat into that private shame, and there's nothing left but the silence, surrounded by all the noise of modern life.
And that silence often gets filled with, well, destructive coping mechanisms.
Yeah, like self-medicating with a few liters of alcohol, as the book puts it, which might numb things briefly, but ultimately makes it worse. Increases impulsivity, too.
And this silence, this shame, it's reinforced all the time by casual stigma, by the things people say.
Oh, definitely. The conversational avoidance section is brutal, but true. He lists things people routinely say to someone who's depressed.
Things they would never dream of saying to someone with, say, cancer.
Exactly. Can you imagine asking someone with cancer, "So why do you think you got stomach cancer?" Have you tried just, like, thinking more positively? Maybe you just need a holiday.
Or telling someone whose leg is visibly broken, yes, yes, your leg's on fire, I get it, but talking about it all the time isn't helping, is it? Just snap out of it. It's unthinkable.
Unthinkable. Yet people frequently tell someone in deep psychic pain to cheer up, get a grip, pull yourself together.
That disconnect between the agony inside and the expectation to just function, that's what's so lethal. Especially for men who are maybe more conditioned to take the blame, to feel like it's their fault.
Which is why the only real answer, the source argues, is radical transparency. Just talking about it
Linking the silence.
openly, honestly, without shame. Because the act of talking, of sharing that invisible burden, is therapy. It creates connection. It bridges that gap between the internal hell and the oblivious outside world. And it offers that tiny, crucial spark of hope, the knowledge that you're not actually alone.
So getting out of that deep, dark place, the book makes it clear it wasn't like flipping a switch. No sudden burst of sunshine.
No, absolutely not. It was agonizingly slow, painful, full of setbacks. He uses that analogy about time relativity. Schopenhauer originally, then Einstein used it.
Ah, the one about courting a nice girl versus sitting on a hot cinder.
Exactly. When you're courting the girl, an hour feels like a second. When you're on the hot cinder, a second feels like an hour.
And during the worst of the depression,
Time was the cinder. Every single moment was measured in pain. Days felt like climbing mountains. Weeks felt like trekking across the Himalayas, he says.
just endless.
And he tried to build progress, stacking up okay-ish days like Jenga blocks.
Right, Jenga, that's such a good visual.
But the whole structure was so fragile. One bad panic attack, one really bad day, and the whole thing could just collapse, set him back weeks in an instant.
Which makes the actual turning point, when it finally came, even more interesting, because it wasn't some big dramatic breakthrough.
No, it was tiny, almost unnoticeable. An inconsequential moment in April 2000. Lasted maybe 10 seconds.
10 seconds. What happened in those 10 seconds?
Nothing, really. That was the point. For about 10 seconds, he realized he wasn't actively thinking about the anxiety or the fear or death. He was just thinking about something totally neutral. Like, try to get an article published.
So not joy, just absence of fear.
Exactly. A tiny 10-second pause in the storm. A moment of neutrality. And that was the beginning of hope.
Because it proved the fear wasn't all-consuming, that it wasn't permanent.
Precisely. It showed him that a painless second was possible, which meant maybe a painless minute was possible, and then an hour, and eventually a day. Recovery started not with a huge victory, but with this tiny, almost accidental gap in the clouds.
That's really powerful, and throughout that slow, difficult climb back up, his partner, Andrea, was obviously crucial.
Absolutely vital. He calls her a life sitter and a mind double. Her support wasn't just emotional, it was practical. She handled all the life admin in the organization when he just couldn't. When half of him was missing, basically.
And the advice that comes out of that for anyone supporting someone, it feels so important. Listen, be patient.
Incredibly patient.
Yeah.
Because it ebbs and flows constantly. Recovery isn't linear.
And the big one, never, ever say, pull yourself together.
Cardinal rule. Andrea understood it was an illness, he says, not a character flaw. And that's key. You have to meet the person where they are. If they genuinely need to stay on the sofa for 3 days, you accept that. You don't make them feel even guiltier or weirder than they already do.
Just be there.
Be there, without judgment.
There's another key moment, a conscious decision point around that surprise trip to Paris, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. Andrea gives him the tickets, and his immediate reaction is just sheer terror.
Fear of flying, fear of the Eurostar train, fear of being trapped, fear of the sensory overload of a big city.
Everything. He literally curled up in a ball on the floor, trembling.
But then he decided to go. Why?
Because he found a bigger fear. He realized that if he didn't go, if he let the fear win this time, he would become, in his own mind, a person who couldn't travel abroad because he was scared.
Ah, so the fear of being permanently broken, permanently mad.
Was actually scarier than the fear of the panic attack on the train.
That's the lesson then. The best way to beat a monster is to find a scarier one.
That's exactly how he puts it. By choosing to face that huge discomfort, by getting on the train, by walking around Paris even while feeling awful. Just surviving it was incredibly therapeutic. It proved to his anxious brain that he could still function, even when terrified.
It's like exposure therapy, but self-directed.
In a way, yeah. Another big weapon he talks about is running.
Right. Active meditation, he calls it.
Yeah, and it works on a really clever psychological level, I think.
Hmm.
Because when you run, your heart races, you breathe heavily, your limbs ache.
All the physical symptoms of a panic attack.
Exactly. But now, those symptoms have a logical, non-threatening reason. You're exercising.
So the mind doesn't interpret them as danger anymore.
Right. It focuses on the effort instead of the internal fear. And he says that physical training, pushing through the I want to stop feeling when running, it taught his mind how to fight that same urge and depression, but on a smaller, more manageable scale.
Building resilience, muscle memory for fighting back.
Yeah, building depression beating power through just putting one foot in front of the other consistently.
Okay, and then we get to this really fascinating, maybe provocative idea at the end of this section, the fearful gift.
Yeah, the idea that the illness itself, the experience of going through it and surviving, can actually become an asset.
How so? He uses historical examples, right?
Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, yeah. Said he was the most miserable man living when he was 32. Had massive breakdowns. But Haig argues that suffering gave Lincoln this profound depth, this understanding of sorrow and human misery.
Which fueled his empathy, made him the leader he was.
Exactly. Fuel the empathy needed for his work, like fighting slavery. The argument is that Lincoln's greatness wasn't just despite his melancholy. It was partly an outgrowth of it.
And Churchill, too, with his black dog.
Winston Churchill, yeah. The historian John Gray is quoted suggesting Churchill's depression wasn't a hindrance to his leadership, it actually enabled it. It gave him this necessary pessimism, this ability to sense real dangers, like Hitler.
That maybe more optimistic, conventional minds just missed.
That's the idea, an exceptional openness born from facing darkness.
So the takeaway isn't just about surviving, it's about how that survival changes you, maybe makes you deeper, more
Yeah.
aware.
I think so. That intensity, that fearful gift, it doesn't just apply to presidents and prime ministers. In everyday life, that heightened awareness of fragility, of mortality, it can make the good moments feel incredibly intense, incredibly precious.
You appreciate simple things more, like cold beer or peanut butter sandwiches, as he lists later.
Exactly. Or reading a story to your kid, or just being with someone you love, you value them more intensely because, really know the alternative, the darkness.
Okay, so as he moves into this phase of living, not just surviving, his focus kind of broadens out, doesn't it? He looks at the world around us.
Yeah, he critiques the structures of modern life, arguing they're almost designed to generate anxiety and dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
This is where he talks about the revolutionary act of calm.
Right. What's the core argument there? It's quite socioeconomic, isn't it?
It really is. He basically says happiness isn't very good for the economy.
Ooh. Explain that.
Well, the system encourages us to constantly worry. Worry about aging, worry about what others have, worry about our bodies, worry about missing out, worry about not having the latest phone or car.
Because worry makes us buy things to fix the worry.
Exactly. Worry drives consumption. We're constantly sold upgrades, quick fixes, things to make us feel briefly better or less inadequate. The whole marketing world depends on us feeling slightly dissatisfied, slightly anxious, slightly incomplete.
So if we were actually calm, content, comfortable with ourselves, just as we are non-upgraded, messy human selves, as he puts it.
The whole engine would stall. The constant need for more, for better, for faster would diminish. So just choosing to be calm, to be still, to be okay with not constantly striving or acquiring, that's actually a radical act. It's countercultural, counter-economic.
Wow, life is what's left when you strip away the noise and the ads.
Pretty much. And the antidote then to this constant pressure, this fast-forward anxiety machine, is deliberately slowing down.
Putting some punctuation back into life.
Yeah, mental punctuation into the run-on sentence of modern living. And he suggests several ways to do that, several tools for self-management.
Mindfulness comes up first, right?
Yeah.
Acceptance.
Yeah, but not in a passive way. It's about acknowledging the anxious thoughts, the depressive feelings, seeing them, but crucially, not becoming them.
Creating distance.
Exactly. Realizing you are the observer of your mind, not its victim, that gives you some breathing room, some perspective.
He uses that lovely metaphor about the cloud and the sky.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. The depression or anxiety might feel like this huge, dark, crushing cloud passing over.
But you have to remember that you are the sky.
You are the sky. You were there before the cloud. You'll be there after it passes. The sky could exist without the cloud. The cloud is temporary. Remembering that core self, that steady background that offers real stability.
It's not just mental tricks, though, is it? He talks about physical ways to slow down, too.
Definitely. Physical punctuation. Yoga is a big one for him. because it treats the mind and body as one integrated system.
Not separate things.
No. And simple things, too, like slow breathing, that classic 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out rhythm, it physically calms the nervous system. And meditation, just sitting, focusing on one calm thought, or even just your breath, slowing the input, slowing the output.
And another way to lessen the anxiety is accepting our smallness. How does that work?
Well, anxiety tends to make us hyper-focused on ourselves. Our internal problems feel massive, like the whole universe revolves around them.
Yeah, it's very self-centered, even if it feels awful.
So the source reminds us, the world just keeps turning. The universe carries on, pretty much oblivious to our internal storms. And realizing how small we actually are in the grand scheme of things, it can be strangely liberating. It deflates that bubble of self-importance that anxiety blows up.
Gets the pressure off a bit.
Exactly. And all this culminates in that amazing list he provides near the end. 40 tips, pieces of wisdom he gathered on his journey.
Yeah, some of those really jump out. They feel like universal truths.
Definitely. Like the warning about the gap.
What's the gap again?
It's that space between where you are right now and where you feel you should be, or where society tells you you should be.
Ah, the comparison trap.
Totally. And he says just thinking about that gap, dwelling on it, makes it wider. And you risk falling into it, into despair. You have to learn to focus on where you actually are, on the achievable next step.
That's huge in our social media age. What else stood up for you?
The idea that reading and writing are powerful forms of meditation
How so?
because they force your mind into a focused, linear pattern. They counteract the scattered, chaotic thinking of anxiety. They're nourishing.
Makes sense. And the one about hate.
Oh, yeah. Hate is pointless. It's like eating a scorpion to punish it for stinging you. It only hurts yourself.
Huh. That's a good one. And the alcohol maths?
Wine multiplies itself by itself, meaning the negative consequences often escalate far beyond any brief pleasure.
Yeah, relatable for many, I suspect. But maybe the most practical, immediate piece of advice for anyone listening who struggles with nighttime worrying.
Oh, absolutely. 3 in the morning is never the time to try and sort out your life.
Never. We've
Yeah.
all been there, haven't we? Lying awake, catastrophizing.
Yeah. Your brain chemistry is different then. The world is dark. Everything feels worse. Any decisions made at 3 a.m. are likely to be skewed by fear and negativity.
Yeah.
Just wait for the morning. Wait for the light.
Waiting for the light. That really feels like the theme that ties it all together, especially when you get to his final list. The list of joys he rediscovered.
Yeah, that list makes it all real, doesn't it? Takes the abstract idea of recovery and makes it tangible.
Things like cold beer, peanut butter sandwiches.
Watching his son being born. Reading the tiger who came to tea. Laughing so hard it hurts. Simple things. Human things.
And just reaching ages he never thought he'd see. 35, 36, 37.
Each birthday a victory. Each ordinary moment a celebration, really.
It absolutely underlines the value of those small things. Things we might just rush past. But they get their real intense value when you've stared into the alternative. #outro. So wrapping this all up, what's the main takeaway from this synthesis of, well, suffering and survival for you listening, whether you're on your own path or supporting someone else?
I think the big thing is acknowledging that recovery is almost never a straight, easy road. It's rocky, it's windy. There are peaks, definitely, but there are also troughs. Lots of them.
It's not failure to have bad days.
Not at all. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
But what this journey, this perspective offers is the idea that the very intensity you feel during depression, that emotional sensitivity, it doesn't just disappear. Over time, it can actually translate into feeling the good moments more intensely, too.
Because you know the contrast.
Exactly. That intense awareness of pain sharpens your awareness of wonder. You don't just get past the suffering. You can learn to use that sensitivity, that fearful gift he talked about.
There's that final reflection he has, isn't there? Like a conversation across time with his younger, despairing self.
Yeah, it's really moving. The younger self asks, basically, wouldn't it be better to feel nothing at all than to feel this much pain?
And the answer.
The older, recovering self says, essentially, you will always be quite intense, but there can be infinity inside a day.
Infinity inside a day.
Wow. It's about finding richness in the present, even with that intensity. The search for your best self, it's ongoing. It never really ends. Every day is a new page, a new possibility, no matter how chaotic the world feels.
And importantly, if you are struggling right now, you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely not. The resources are out there. The book itself lists places like Mind and Rethink Mental Illness in the UK, but similar organizations exist worldwide. They can offer immediate support, advice, help you start that journey.
So breathe deep, be brave enough, as Haig suggests, to feel everything, the good and the bad, and just keep going.
You will thank yourself later for the persistence, for building that quiet survivor inside you.